My own wedding turned into a nightmare when my fiancé's wealthy family humiliated my mother in front of everyone. They sneered at his worn-out coat, whispered poverty like a curse, and banished him to a corner table. I stood frozen, watching my dad's shoulders sink, my mother's eyes fill with tears, and my future husband. He just grinned. That's when something snapped. I grabbed the microphone and burned their world down. But before I tell you what I actually did, hit like and subscribe to Winds of Thought. And drop your country in the comments. Now, let me take you back to that night. The venue glittered like a palace. Crystal drops caught the light, music swelled softly, and guests clinked glasses while laughing. Everything looked like a fairy tale, my wedding, the night I dreamed of since I was a little girl. I stood near the stage in my white dress, palms sweating, trying to calm my racing heart. People kept hugging me, complimenting the flowers, the food, the decorations. From the outside, it was flawless. But deep in my gut, something felt wrong, a cold knot I couldn't name. Have you ever felt perfect happiness crack right before your eyes? I scanned the room and found them, my parents, standing together near a side pillar, smiling at me with quiet pride. My father gave me that small nod he always did, the one that said, "You made it, sweetheart." My mother's eyes sparkled not with tears but with joy. For a heartbeat I relaxed. Everything is fine, I told myself. They're happy, I'm happy. But the unease didn't leave. It just waited. My father tugged at his jacket sleeve, trying to look comfortable. He wasn't built for places like this. He was a mechanic, a repairman, a man who spent 40 years with grease under his fingernails so I could have school books and warm meals. His clothes were always clean, never designer, never new. He never cared about labels. He cared about honesty, hard work, and keeping our little family together. Growing up, we didn't have much money. But we had something better: candlelit nights when the power failed. His silly stories, my mother's soft laugh. I felt like the richest kid in the world. We weren't poor, just simple and proud of it. My mother was the same, quiet, strong, working double shifts at the hospital laundry so I never went without. She never bought herself a single nice thing, but somehow she always found money for my school trips, my books, my dreams. Not once did they make me feel less than anyone else. And standing there that night, seeing them smile at me, it should have been perfect. But it wasn't. Amelia, my fiancé, stood beside me in a tailored suit, confident and calm, a man born into luxury, power, old money. He took my hand. "You're breathtaking." I forced a smile. "Thank you." For a second, everything felt normal again, like the future I'd imagined was still real. But where do we ever know the people we love? I met Julian 2 years earlier, not at a gala or a business event, but in a hospital waiting room. My father had injured his back at work, and I sat there, terrified and exhausted. Julian was visiting his grandmother. We started talking, first about small things, then deeper. He seemed different from the arrogant rich men I'd heard about. He was kind, patient, almost humble. When he proposed, he said something I'll never forget: "Your family doesn't matter. I choose you." I believed him completely. But his family? They were another world. From the first dinner at their estate, I felt their cold inspection. They were polite on the surface, but underneath, judgment. They measured everyone by status, connections, net worth. And I brought none of that. I wasn't a heiress or a senator's daughter. I was just a girl from a working-class neighborhood. More than once, I overheard whispers behind manacled hands. Julian could have done so much better. His mother once said to me directly, "In families like ours, marriage isn't just about love." His father barely looked at me. To them, I was an outsider who didn't belong in their perfect portrait. Still, I tried. I smiled. I told myself things would change after the wedding. Love would be enough. I looked back at my parents, still standing there, still smiling, and felt a flicker of hope. But then I noticed Julian's mother staring at them. Not casually, watching like a hawk, she whispered something to her husband. He glanced at my parents, then away. A cold dread crawled up my spine. Am I overthinking? I wondered. Maybe I'm just nervous. I tried to ignore it. Then dinner service began. Waiters guided guests to their tables. The main table filled with Julian's relatives, business partners, the elite. I waited for someone to escort my parents to a good spot. No one came. Instead, a server walked up to them and pointed toward the back near the kitchen doors. My heart slammed. No. I breathed. I stepped forward, but Julian's cousin grabbed my arm. Melia, photos. I turned for 1 second, and when I looked back, my parents were quietly following the waiter, not complaining, just accepting. I couldn't breathe. Have you ever watched someone you love be humiliated and felt completely powerless? Minutes blurred, photos, toasts, fake laughter. Finally, I broke away. I'll be right back, I told Julian. He nodded, already laughing with someone else. I walked quickly through the glittering tables, past the music, past the champagne, until I reached the back corner. And there they were. My parents sat at a bare table, no centerpiece, no candles, just rough wood. Every time the kitchen door swung open, heat, clatter, and shouted orders flooded over them. It wasn't a guest table, it was a dumping ground. My father sat rigid, trying to look unbothered, but his hands were fists. My mother attempted a smile, but her eyes were already red. Dad, I said softly. He looked up, forcing a grin. Amelia, you look beautiful. Why are you here? I asked. Before he could answer, a voice cut in like a blade. Oh, she finally noticed. Julian's mother stood there with a cluster of women in expensive dresses, smiling without warmth. We thought they'd be more comfortable here, she said lightly, closer to the kitchen. Less overwhelming. The women comfortable, more comfortable. Then Julian's father stepped forward, cold and calm. Amelia, let's not pretend. This level of event isn't for everyone. One of the women laughed openly. Did you see his jacket? It looks ancient. Another added, and those shoes, oh my. My father's head dipped just slightly, but I saw it. Julian's sister joined in, smirking. Honestly, I was worried he'd sit at the main table and confuse the staff. Silence, then laughter, soft at first, then spreading. Another voice. At least now he's where he belongs. More laughter. My mother's hands trembled as she reached for her water glass. A tear seared down her cheek. She blinked fast, trying to hide it. Then Julian's mother delivered the final blow, smiling with satisfaction. They should be grateful we even invited them. That sentence broke something in me. I spun around, searching for Julian. He stood a few yards away, watching our eyes met. I waited for him to speak, to step in. To stop this, he didn't. Instead, his sister leaned in and whispered in his ear. I didn't hear the words, but I saw his reaction. Julian smiled. Then he laughed, a real easy laugh. In that moment, everything inside me went still. No anger, no confusion, just pure, cold clarity. I looked back at my parents. My father silent, my mother, another tear falling. She turned her face away, ashamed. And that was the last straw. The music stopped. The guests vanished. Only one thing mattered. I took a slow breath, then another. Without a word, I turned and walked. Not fast, not slow, steady. Through the tables, past the confused guests. Whispers erupted. Where's she going? What's happening? I didn't stop until I reached the stage. The microphone gleamed under the lights. I stared at it for a second, then grabbed it. The feedback screeched. Music died. Voices faded. Every eye locked onto me, and in that silence, I spoke. Nuff. My voice rang through the hall. Sharp, clear, unshakable. Whispers died. Even the staff froze. I gripped the mic tighter. All of you have been enjoying this evening, laughing, celebrating. Pretending everything is perfect. I turned toward Julian's family. But let's talk about what's really happening tonight. 1 easy glances. I raised my hand and pointed to the back. That man you laughed at, the one you mocked for his clothes, spent his entire life working with his hands so I could stand here today. My voice didn't shake, but my chest burned. He never asked for luxury. He only asked for respect. And you denied him that. I shifted toward my mother. That woman, who gave up everything for me. You made her cry tonight. A tear rolled down her cheek again. No one speaks. I turned to Julian. And you? He stiffened. I waited for you to say something. To do something. But you just stood there. And you laughed. He took a step forward. Amelia, wait. I raised my hand. No. I smiled just a little. But that's not the only thing you should be worried about. Confusion spread. Fear flickered. I looked at his parents. You spent the whole night deciding where my father belongs. Now let me show you where you stand. The room held its breath. The investment trust that owns 40% of your company. I paused, letting the silence stretch. It belongs to me. For a second, no one moved. Then chaos. Whispers, frowns, phones pulled out. Julian's father's face went pale. That's impossible, he snapped. That trust is one of our largest silent partners. I nodded. Yes, and you never bothered to learn who controls it. His jaw tightened. We know every major investor. You know the name on the paperwork. I cut in. You never looked deeper. The trust is held by a foundation, managed through lawyers. And I am the sole beneficiary. Funds lit up. A man near the front whispered loudly, she's right, that fund holds 40%. The air changed. Julian's father turned to his son, voice cracking. Do something. Julian just stared at me, no anger, only fear. Because he knew there was nothing he could say, I turned back to his father. You built your reputation on power, on control, on believing people like me don't matter. I paused. Let me show you what control really looks like. The room went silent. I am officially announcing that my foundation will begin divesting every share from your company, effective immediately. Gasps. And once that happens, I tilted my head, let's see how strong your empire stands without our capital. Panic erupted. Investors whispered frantically. Phones rang. Starting tomorrow. I continued, I will call for an emergency board meeting. Every shareholder in this room will receive a full report. Not about your profits but about your character. Julian's mother stepped back, his father stood frozen. Julian still silent. I took a deep breath, then bent down and slid off my wedding ring. The tiny metallic sound echoed like a gunshot. I placed it on the table beside me. This wedding, I said, looking at Julian one last time, is over. Shock gasps. But I didn't look back. I walked off the stage, straight to the back corner. My mother looked up at me, eyes wet. I gently wiped her tears, then I took my father's hand. Let's go home. He didn't speak, just squeezed my fingers together. We walked through the same crowd that had laughed at us. Now they were silent. No one stopped us. No one dared. At the door, I paused without turning around. I would rather lose everything than stand beside people who don't understand respect. Then I walked out into the light, leaving behind the chandeliers, the lies, and the crumbling remains of their empire. If this story moved you, hit like and subscribe to Winds of Thought, and tell me in the comments, would you have done the same?